What if there is another angle that this comes to? What if you have a whole other awakening, which is, to me, the most fascinating thing what's happening here in Lakewood with my friend Turks. To me, this is a whole different element of Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach.
I believe episode 52 of the Greeting Moshiach Podcast. Thank you for being here. This is a very 52. Yeah,
52.
I only saw this for the first time last week.
Wow. All right.
So yeah, this should be a very interesting episode.
This is why we still do this.
Yeah. So let me just give a short introduction here. I was on a WhatsApp chat, and as one does on WhatsApp, you get into conversations with Chassidim. And we met this Gewaldic Yid, and I don't really know him so well, so I'll let him do the introduction. I'm Simcha Fisch, this is Levi Palchenko, and Yosef, take it away.
Yeah. Yosef Shidler. Okay, so what are we talking about?
Mashiach.
Mashiach, I like it.
Yeah. So the discussion on the group, as often happens on WhatsApp groups, people just start discussing should we talk about the Rebbe being Mashiach? Shouldn't we talk about it? Perhaps. And the basic thing is, some people say yes, we have to talk about it. It's very important, and others say, it seems clear that for some people, at least, it takes away from other things that everyone agrees is important. Torah, learn Chitas, learn Rambam, focused on the things that for sure are important, instead of harassing everybody on WhatsApp, making everybody crazy, and things that are probably going to end up being Melech HaMoshiach anyways. This is really the question. So, and it comes back to, as we've spoken about here, you have to understand what are I think the discussion really is, you have to go back a few steps and ask yourself, what is the title of last episode? What is the Shlichus? What is because if the Shlichus is about, is it important? If it's important, you have two things to consider. On one hand, if it is important that is Moshiach, if that is central to what our job is right now in order to bring the Geula, then yes, whatever challenges are in the way, we'll pass them, we'll surmount them, we'll find a way to make it palatable. We'll focus on spreading the Rebbe's message about Mashiach. And if it's not so negaya, it's just a cool zach that we think that Rebbe's Mashiach, but it doesn't really matter, then obviously it's just Melech people, and you shouldn't talk about it, and why you're making everyone crazy. So the question you really have to ask yourself is that really important, or is it not important? Which one is it? And yeah, that's the topic on the conversation, I think.
So my question for you, all right, coming into this conversation, is where do you draw the line of what else is also important?
It's a good question.
Meaning,
I would say that so this is something that I was having a conversation with someone during the Kinnis HaShluchim in a similar vein, but they were asking me about where there's a source for certain things and this and that and the other, and I said the source for everything everything in my life, my Yiddishkeit, my Chassidishkeit, and my avodah, everything that I'm doing, the goals in my life, all of these things are centered around what the Rebbe says. So if being that's the case, so I guess we go on based on the word that the Rebbe says and how the Rebbe lays out pretty much if it's Shlichus or if it's avodah or if it's in general the outlook I should have in life, my relationships with other people, my relationship with myself, and so on and so forth, I would imagine.
And so what I'm bothered by, and what I see by many who are very active in this, circle, is that one comes at the loss of another. Meaning that once you make this Ikkar, so many other things become tougher. And is that the intention that the Rebbe left us with, that we should walk into this while dropping the ball on a million other things?
If you end up, maybe you'll elaborate more, give us some examples to clarify what exactly is that you mean. But if, for instance, someone is not focusing on Chitas and Rambam, then yeah, you're missing the point here. Mashiach,
I just want to make sure we have that clear.
yeah, meaning Mashiach is the completion. He'll bring about the completion of Torah mitzvahs. You're focusing on everything a lot more. It's even more chassidus. Everything is actually, it doesn't get easier. It gets it's even more demanding of you.
It's a very interesting conversation, because this question that you're bringing up, Yosef, is a question on the whole Derash Shvi, not just this whole Mashiach thing. It's a question on the whole Derash Shvi. I was having multiple conversations with people about the need, the kach, and the focus, and davening and learning and avodah, and I was thinking, like, growing up in Derash Shvi and listening to everything that I was saying and all the things that I was kaching in, and especially if you look in Gem, if you're looking at the Gem Rebbe, it's like the Rebbe was not what people colloquially would put as a Lubavitcher Rebbe, in the sense of like the Rebbe Rashab and the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek and the Rebbe Marash. Like, the Rebbe was a whole different like type of Rebbe. It was in and this question of it comes in what did you say, that you might ignore it? What was your
at the expense of
right, at the expense
focus.
It's like the whole Shlichus, everything, all the mitzvahs are seemingly, obviously the Rebbe challenged us to make a balance. It wasn't like the Rebbe says, oh no, do this and don't do that, but the way the Rebbe was demanding, it seems that many things that the Rebbe would demand and the Rebbe kachten came and at the end of the day came at the expense of things and staples of what Chassid, what was Lubavitch was about. The famous picture of going into a Lubavitch shul and seeing people davening for like in the late afternoon on Shabbos afternoon, and Pashat seeing a minyan davening, like that wasn't the picture of Derash Shvi. The picture of Derash Shvi is on Shabbos afternoon, everybody going to all the other shuls and then doing talucha and farbrengens. And
how much do you think that's because we just have really low neshamas that are not that in tune with feeling godliness at a level previous generations were capable of, so we were never going to be doing that anyways, or we totally would have been, and Shlichus is taking away from the focus of that? What percentage? Like, I feel like it's a little bit of both, kind of. Like, not necessarily were we going to be the biggest daveners anyways.
Here's how let me tell you, let me give you some insight into my headspace. Historically, right, I would say if you lived in the early, let me just throw out a year, 100 years ago, the 1920s, while Mashiach was a dream, was a reality, it was on the lips of Jews walking into the gas chamber, it was an animamin, I don't think people were living with Mashiach the same way people are now. And I say that, and I'm talking from the standpoint of I'm in Lakewood, right? And I've got a neighbor who is quite famous. He hangs out in the White House. His name is Turks. And he's asking the press secretary of the White House if Donald Trump is building the Beis Hamikdash. People are, and we have an entire mega WhatsApp group, right, of guys in Lakewood and Baltimore and Muncie, and everyone's talking about world events and how it's related to Mashiach. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know or think that the world and definitely the Jewish world as a whole, was at that same standpoint 100 years ago. I don't think they were. That would be my guess. What I take the Nun-Alef, Nun-Beis like shift and change is that suddenly the Rebbe's walking us into a whole new setup and a whole new ballpark where Moshiach is the forefront of our minds. Moshiach is the forefront of what we're thinking about. And historically, we have entered into the era of Moshiach. We are literally, and Moshiach is not a 1, 2, 3 thing. It could be, but practically it doesn't play out that way. And practically it's a process. And practically there's a lot of world events that need to happen and things that, there is a Geula train, and the Rebbe awoken Klal Yisrael to that envisionment that we're here. We've gotten to the end of the road, and now you got to start looking at the world with through Moshiach eyes. But I don't believe that takes away from the past 50 years or the past 250 years of Chassidus. And I find certain people that they get so caught up in this 2 or 3 year period that along with it drops pretty much everything else. And they're willing to call it all in the name of Nun-Alef, Nun-Beis, Shlichus. Learn the Shlichus. You're going to be. You're going to.
Can you give some examples of what this looks like?
I'm gonna. By the way, I'm just from hearing a little bit of your podcast, I'm going to embarrass myself because it's clear you guys both know the Shlichus far better than I. But from the little that I have learned through them, the little bit, and I've seen the statements over there. And by the way, I've had this conversation with many people here in Lakewood, people who are not Chabad, and I'll show them the statements. And I'm like, look, if you're going to learn the Shlichus from this time period, I said, you're going to have a very hard time with it. I said, it's straight up.
A fun time.
No, it's practical. I'm saying like an ideological, like you're gonna you're gonna be mind blown because what's written over there is not what you're ready for.
I can attest to that fact. It's
so. Yeah. I've had this conversation with people, and I'm like, look, you want to address it, you want to talk about it, you want to get into it. I said, I'll happily address it. I'll happily talk it. I'll show it to you. I said, but practically, I don't think that's gonna and this is where I asked the question is if I'm gonna spend 3 hours with somebody, and I have the option to spend an hour. All right, I was having this conversation with someone maybe a week, 2-3 weeks ago. It was Chitas, right, and a shul over there. We're getting to this conversation, and I'm looking to myself. Okay, I still haven't finished Chitas today. I still haven't. I haven't done Tillim. I got a lot of things to do. Is my tachlis right now to sit and have this conversation with this guy at the expense of doing a bunch of other stuff? And that's where I asked the question. Is when I looked at him and I said, look, I could sit and have this conversation with you from today till tomorrow. I said, and I'll prove you this way, and you'll tell me that way. I said, tachlis, it's conversation, and it's beautiful. And Mashiach's going to come, you're going to know exactly who he is. I'm not going to have to prove anything to you. I said, but like, what's me and you sitting here arguing for the next 2? Like, what's it coming at expense of? Is my chiyuv now to go sit and finish up what I need to finish up? Should I go learn? Should I go finish the things that the Rebbe asked me to do? Or should I sit here for the next 2 hours to convince this guy that Rebbe's Moshiach?
Okay, but this is first of all valid.
But answer my question.
So I just there's two
why
things
why
I
is
wanna,
this different
I wanna
though?
say.
Why is it different than putting fault on somebody else if you didn't do chitas yet? Like, it's a separate question. How do you balance your own personal things you have to get done with shlichusin that are demanded from what we're supposed to be doing.
So that's my
Why is
question
it
for you.
Mashiach a unique?
I'm at,
Whatever. Continue.
but I'm asking you a fundamental question, right?
So
We only have so
yeah.
many hours in a day, right? So if I'm learning with somebody, all right, my fundamental question is that I'm not against having the conversation. I'm not against carrying the conversation with people, and I think the conversation is educational in the right place, in the right time, in the right context, in the right conversation. But again, at expense of what? Because for any shliach or for any person or any individual Lubavitcher who has a Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis in front of him, and what entails to have this conversation with another person, 95% of the time, it's at the expense of many, many other things.
So I think the answer to the question is a fundamental perspective, meaning this is a question that you have with everything in your life, the question of priority, the question of what takes precedence, right? We only have, like you said, there's only so much time in the day. Everybody has to answer that question for themselves. And I think, like I said before, that being that at least as much as my goal is to live my life in accordance with what the Rebbe says. Obviously, we all have struggles and whatever it is. But if that's the case, if the perspective that I have is what takes precedence, and for me it's whatever the Rebbe says, so then that's how I make that distinction. Now, you said before about
I want to get particular for a second.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to ask, you're my mashpia for a second. I'm sitting to Chitas, and I'm going home afterwards, and I got a world of family obligation and everything. All right, I got an hour now. All right, I can finish Chitas, I can finish Rambam, I can do the things I need to do, or I can have a conversation with a guy.
I think that depends if you think that this person will have to end. Is this conversation mainly for fun, or is this conversation likely to lead somewhere? If you think this conversation has potential to actually have an effect on the person, I would recommend having a conversation at the time if it feels like it's going to be effective. If it feels like it's another one of those conversations where everyone's just harassing each other.
I want to clarify. Simcha, you're saying that conversation, you believe at that moment, at that point in time, is more important than Chitas and Rambam?
I think that everyone should finish Chitas and Rambam before Shkia, and that's something you should do. But I don't know, was it at the buzzer and there's 5 minutes to Shkia and you could finish Chumash? I think I'll wait here a second, I'll finish Chumash. That's a question. What if you'd have to put phone on somebody? And again, that's a question in general. Or finish Chitas and Rambam, another few minutes of Mitzrayim. I don't know. These are questions that don't really pertain to Mashiach or not. I think the paramount Shlichus of our generation that applies to everyone is Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzkeinu, which I understand to mean so that's important. Yeah,
I think a good way, the best way of answering this question, because like you're saying, the answer to the question is on an individual level. Each person has their own way of understanding it. Each person has their own way of answering that question, because each person takes different priorities. Some people, they'll say Rambam is more important than Chitas, and some people will say Chitas is more important than Rambam. Some people will say putting on tefillin with another person is more important than Chitas and Rambam. Some people say whatever. There's so many things that we can play with, but I think the answer to that question is on a fundamental perspective. And this is what I wanted to say before, is that take a yid that lived through his entire life in Mitzrayim. His entire life consisted of waking up in the morning, trying to do as much Yiddishkeit as he can, going to hard backbreaking labor, coming back home, trying to do more Yiddishkeit, and every moment of his life he's trying to do Yiddishkeit and as much learn Torah as possible, even though they weren't chiv, but I'm sure they were trying, they were learning, and they were slaves in Egypt. Yes? And then comes Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu comes to them and tells them, I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. So exciting, beautiful, amazing. But at the end of the day is the same, and they're continually working, and life moves on. And then as the plagues progress, as the days go by, and they get closer and closer to the 10th Makkah, to the 10th plague, life starts getting easier and easier, and the Yidden in Mitzrayim start getting much more comfortable, and Baruch Hashem, now that they have less, the Egyptians are paying less attention to them. Now they have more time to do Yiddishkeit, which I'm sure they were doing because, obviously, because they were children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, moving on. Then comes the tzivui. Moshe Rabbeinu gives them a mitzvah to take a lamb and put it in their house, keep it there. At some point, they were commanded to shecht, blood around the doorpost, and these are new things that are coming to them. Previously, never had this in their life, and they didn't know about it. But they listened because it's Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's coming to take us out of Egypt. And then Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to go and to get all the gold and silver and jewels and all the precious things from the Egyptians that they had found during the plague of darkness. And I'm sure there were people at the time who were like, what are we doing? What in the world are we doing? You're telling me that we're freed from Egypt? No, we're not. We're still in Egypt. Look at this. We're still in Egypt. Life is better. Life is easier. Yeah, but we're still in Egypt. They're still Egyptians. Look at the Egyptians. There was a whole war that just happened, and people were murdered, and it was terrible. And you call this redemption? What are you doing? And the people that are going around collecting the jewel, the gold and silver. The perspective is that we're going out of Galus, and our leader, Moshe Rabbeinu, is telling us that this is the mitzvah of the hour. This is what we need to do right now. Right now, we need to be busy with getting the gold and silver and all the precious things from the Egyptians. You have all these questions about what you're doing. What about your day-to-day schedule that you had for the past 20 years? Right now, put that to the side. That is not the priority. The priority right now, priority number one is get this. Priority number one is hold a lamb in your bedroom. You have extra time, do those things that you were doing until now. That's how it should be. And right now, we're at the point, you're saying Nun-Alef, and you're saying how the world is different and people are more Moshiach conscious and this and the other. Yes, because we are at that point. We are at the time where the Rebbe told us, Moshe Rabbeinu tells us that this is the call of the hour, the avodah. And you said that you don't know the Simcha so well. But chayus, the Rebbe says that this is the shar, this is the gate through which everything goes through. Meaning that everything has this goal not only in mind, but in its forefront. The title of every mitzvah that you do is Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Okay. That's how it has to be in your mind. And because, one second, because that's the title of every single mitzvah, if you have the 10 seconds right now with another Jew, right? Not yourself. You finished Chitas, you finished Rambam, you have checked all the boxes. Right now it's half hour before Shkia, and you decided, I'm going to go do Mivtzaim. And you meet this Jew, okay, yeah, you do it. We put a lot of tefillin, and now you're at the last minute before Shkia. You have 1 minute with this Jew, and you're not going to meet him before, you're not going to meet him after. You have 1 minute, and you ask him, are you Jewish? Yes, I'm Jewish. You want to put on tefillin? No. You get into a whole back and forth. And 50 seconds go by. 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds now with this Jew. What do you do? So if the goal is to put on tefillin on every single Jew, so then you're going to put on tefillin on that Jew. You're going to put the reish, whatever it is, the 10 seconds that you have to put on tefillin. If the goal is to get everybody ready to greet Mashiach, then this is based on the perspective that call of the hour is to greet Mashiach. If that's the goal, if the goal is to greet Mashiach, then that's what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, but you can't say put on tefillin after Shkia. So maybe you put on tefillin.
Right. But let's say the guy's leaving. Yeah. Anyways,
let me zoom in onto your muscle for a second. Right. I'm gonna throw myself into that scenario. All right. I have a guy. I can get him to whatever. So now I'm gonna ask you. Are you gonna tell the guy? Let's say Yechi, or are you gonna tell him to say, like we got 1 minute to say a line. Tell him that the law which Rebbe told us that Mashiach is coming, and we got to prepare, and we got to get ready for the Geulah. Like, which one is the correct approach?
One more time. You have one line to tell him. What are the options?
You have 1 minute. You're not going to see the Jew later, before, or whatever. Like, what should, like, let's utilize chayus Nun-Beis. How are you getting that into 1 minute? That's practical, and resonate, and walk away thinking that you're not.
Moshiach is ready to. What does it say on my WhatsApp? What does it say in my WhatsApp bio? Moshiach is ready to come. He's waiting for us, and let's get ready by doing more mitzvahs to greet him. That's the message, I think.
Beautiful. So just to clarify, because I want to make sure that I don't like have this wrong over here, and I'm coming from like I shouldn't run after him to like repeat after me. See, I don't know, like that. That's not the first priority. In the one,
I'll say whenever I put tefillin on someone, I do say a with them. And I don't think whatever I do that. I'm saying, but if you have a minute and trying to impart someone something that he knows what you could do both probably. You could say and you could finish off that minute with saying, let's say a prayer for saying, long live Mashiach. Do we want Mashiach to be our king? We want to get ready. Let's say it together. Like I don't see why it has to be one or the other. Like.
All right, so he's gonna say to you now. Now he's gonna say to you like, "What's this prayer? Like, what's it?" I don't know. I'm asking like, what's your most like?
I'm saying it's not so different than saying Shema with somebody.
I'm just wondering, like, because you're opening the Pandora's box of Ofanim Kabul, and what does that mean? And this conversation is going to go in a million directions. And I'm trying to stay geared and focused in a conversation of this nature, so it doesn't spin off into a million other conversations. Which is, I practically have 1 minute with a person. All right, I practically have 1 minute. You know, like I want to close down this conversation at a shal shudas. All right. I'm not opposed to picking up the conversation at a different point in time, that it's a different day and it's a different situation and it's a different, like, but in context of practical, like, day-to-day operation, if you have a good point in time and a good place and a good scenario to have a conversation, all right, personally, I'm not opposed to the conversation. I've sat here with many people and I've had this conversation and I've discussed with them Mashiach and identity of Mashiach and whatever. But my practical is, like, I'll get into this, like, I get into this conversation with people, you know, time to time, all right? And they're asking me, like, what, you believe that Rebbe is Mashiach? I'm like, sure. And they're like, what about this? What about that? I said, look, if I do, and I'll spend the next 3 hours and I can convince you yes, and you'll tell me no. And I said, practically, what are we accomplishing in those next 3 hours? I can convince you. I can tell you what I believe. You're going to walk away. You may agree. You may not agree. You're going to disagree. You're going to, like, should we spend the next 3 hours in conversation fighting and arguing?
So if you think that you're going to be matzliach, then for sure.
Just to clarify, I don't think the point is that know who Mashiach is just because it's cool. If the point is that people greet Mashiach, the avodah is not. There's no mitzvah. There's no avodah that everyone knows who Mashiach is. You're correct. There is
I want to pause you there, because that to me is a major fundamental for me. Which say that again over there.
There's I don't think there's any mitzvah or point that everyone is just aware that the Rebbe who Mashiach is, and it stops there. They know who it is. Like, okay, and they continue living their life. The point is that people should actually actively, everything they're doing should be in order to greet Mashiach and get ready to greet Mashiach. And I think it's not possible to do that unless you know that he's here and it's the Rebbe. Otherwise, it's not in the cards. You know, she's not here. But I don't think the point is just to know. The point is to do something about it.
Let me approach. So let me like blow your mind for a second and approach this from a whole different angle. All right. What if there is another angle that this comes to?
Explain.
What if you have, and this is where I want to dive in over here. What if you have a whole other awakening, which is, to me, the most fascinating thing, what's happening here in Lakewood with my friend Turks. To me, this is like this is a whole different element of Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach. Because everyone saw this WhatsApp clip of Turks sitting in the White House asking the president or the press secretary if we're building the third temple, and no one knows the backstory on it. And no one knows like what's behind it and what goes into it, and this whole amazing element, which is that I'm going to give you like a 2-3 minute window overview, and I think to me I think this is like incredibly more fascinating and insightful into like where the world's at and what's happening.
I think we just got an episode title. I think we just. I think we just got an episode title. Asking Donald Trump about the third temple, the inside story.
There you go. Okay, so I daven in a shul over here. See, this is a shul. The Rebbe over here is straight Ben Achar Ben of the Bnei Yisachar. And the Turks over here has been a long time press secretary in the White House, and he was very, very interested post October 7th. Is there anything in Nach that like gives a hint to where we're at in time wise? Right. So he started digging around, and he got very, very into into a Sefer Avodah, which is basically one of the smallest books in Tanakh, if not the smallest. Either if you know the history over there. Just to give you a little history of who Avodah was. Avodah was a ger from Edom. At that point in time, to understand who Edom is, because everyone always mainstream Yiddishkeit, we right away think Rome, but this is 1,000 years before Rome. Edom was a little tiny nation in the area where Jordan is today, and this is a little country. It's called Edom, and Avodah is a ger from this nation called Edom, and this is during the time of Eliyahu Navi, and he has this desire. He's going to help Eliyahu Navi, who is basically him and a bunch of other Nevi'im are being persecuted. I think from Achav. There's this whole persecution that they were a non-profit organization. The kings, they didn't like the prophets.
Yeah.
So
this was Achav's wife, in principle, Zevel, going after these prophets.
Yeah, they were a non-profit organization. So they're the first Jewish non-profit.
501c3.
Yeah. So Avodah was there. He was helping out the prophets, and the Eibishter was very, very happy with what Avodah did, and he granted Avodah a nevuah. What was unique about Avadiah's nevuah was that his nevuah dealt with something very, very specific, which was what happens achar sayamim. What's going to happen at the end of days, and specifically to who? To Edom. Now, you have to understand and put in context over here what this means, because this is 1,000 years before the Roman Empire, all right, even existed. This is 1,000 years before the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed by the Romans. And the Eibishter is saying, wait, I'm going to give you a nevuah, which is going to happen like 3,000 years from now into the future, about Edom, who's going to be a whole different country in 1,000 years from now, how they're going to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, and then thousands of years later, I'm going to show you how I'm going to bring down Edom in the times of Mashiach. Which, if you process that in your head, it's mind-blowing. What type of nevuah Edom was. What's really, really fascinating. Yeah, what Avodah was. What's really, really fascinating is that the Bnei Yisachar only authored one sefer on Tanakh, which is Klei Yerayim, which basically is his perush on Avodah. It was a very obscure sefer. Most people had never heard of it. The reason that Turks, my neighbor, got onto it is the Rav of Rashul, being the Ben Achar Ben of Bnei Yisachar, he knew about it, and he said to him, "If you're learning Avodah, you should check this out." All right, so he gives him the sefer, and if you get yourself a copy, it's incredible safer. It basically shows. I mean, what to get into. I'm synopsizing because this is a 3-4 hour shear of like what and you can go longer.
We should get him on. We should get him on to talk about it.
He'll join you. What he got into is that we're in a timeline. We're in a very, very interesting timeline of everything post what happened, like from COVID onward, like where the world was going. Meaning, like COVID, like almost, so to speak, may have triggered off this like different path down a different road, where the whole world's been going crazy. Just contextual for a second, like in a interesting like train of thought, because there's so many things to say over here on this topic. I was sitting with a yid, a little Frau yid. It's not from the Lakewood area, a little bit outside, whatever. He came to have lunch with me, and he so like 2-3 months, a month ago maybe, and he was telling me that he every year he does like a Hanukkah thing in his neighborhood. He has like a bunch of Jews in his neighborhood. He says, this year I'm not doing it. So why are you not doing it this year? He said, oh, all my neighbors, they're against me now. I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, that like you Jews, and they're like they associate us with Israel, and it's just like the anti-Semitic sentiment and whatever. He said, so like I don't even know what to do with that. So I looked at him and I said to him, I said, I want you to think about something. I said, if 5 years ago I would have told you that all your neighbors would have flipped and been against you because of what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, you'd probably laugh at me. And he's looking at me and he's like processing what I'm saying. I'm like, I want you to realize what's happening is so irrational that it could only be like
part of the bigger story.
Part of the bigger story. It's something that's something so out of the box, something so bigger than yourself. And I said, once you like submit to that we're living in a process where the world is changing in an incredible way, and you're going to be mind blown to like see like what's happening in the world and how everything that's happening is getting the world. It's clean up on aisle 7, and the world is getting ready for Moshiach.
So it's actually very cool, because that's something that we focus on this podcast, about also Tafshin and Nun-Alef, Nun-Beis. Something that we've spoken about a few times is that, the same idea that it started with the Yalkut Shemaini from the Gulf War.
Okay, so now let's get something very interesting about the Yalkut Shemaini.
Yeah.
History. Who brought up the Yalkut Shemaini?
Some guy posted up a poster. Who was it?
I don't know his name.
I have it in my WhatsApp. The idea is that it came from the Chassidim, and then the Rebbe adapted it.
Correct.
Which was that it wasn't the Rebbe telling us the Yalkut Shemaini. The Chassidim found the stuff, and the Rebbe basically concurred that this is where we're at. This is what's going on. What you're seeing is what's happening now.
If I may, Yosef,
Yeah.
just to that particular detail of the story, I think is why I think it's so important that nowadays, whenever we see something, and a lot of people make fun of it, they think they belittle it, that you're making nice, cute pshatlach. It's so important to realize the power that us, especially as Yidden, have to materialize things that might be happening in the world. If you see something, and if you see something, say something, but in a real way, that if you see something spiritual take effect in the world, by you talking about it, you are bringing it you're drawing it more down to a place where even the deepest part will be affected by it. And just to say this point.
Yeah.
Okay. So what
people like to say like, only the Rebbe can say that. You can't say that. Like, yeah.
It's like
let's go back to the Lubavitch history for a second. What was the Rebbe Rayatz doing during World War II?
telling everyone to do tshuva.
What was he publishing?
He was publishing the Hatamim. What?
No.
Kedusha.
Yeah, what was that?
That was a call for people to that was a call for about the Geulah coming, and people allowed to tshuva, allowed to Geulah. No.
What was in it?
No. Educate us.
So a lot of it was yeah, Alter Shuvah, Alter Geulah was there, but there was also points where the Rebbe Rayatz was specifically putting codes of how event, like for example, he predicted D-Day 2 years in advance through codes that were in Kriya Kedusha. There were ruled events where the Rebbe was predicting them and literally writing them in codes 2 years before they're happening and talking about how everything that's happening right now, I'm talking about World War II, is related to the Geula. Gets better. Ready for the guy who's throwing out Chitas, Chitas, Chitas. The Rayatz says in those years, what makes one a Lubavitcher? Two things. This is Lashon about this. Chitas and learning or getting through the month's Kriya Kedusha.
That's what made interesting.
That was his call. He said those two things.
Just like today. No? It's like Chitas, Rambam, and Nun-Beis.
So now the question becomes, all right, how do you practically start applying Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis? Now, I have my books, my most recent book, Amazing Miracles for kids. So I put over there a story, and I spent a lot of time researching this story. It is the story of the Gulf War. And I specifically over there get very into the Rebbe's quotes and what happened during that period of time, and the Rebbe's Sichos of Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis in relation to that. And I put it all together as a story. I have a theory. I may be alone in this, and I've discussed with a few people, but this is my own take on Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis. Is that much of Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis is nevuah of 20, 30, 40 years down the road.
Was it intended at the time to be that, though? Was that?
It's not that it wasn't relevant in Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, but it's also relevant in futuristic sense. And I'm going to give you an example where we see this. All right, there was 2 points in history where this was fundamentally clear that the Rebbe was speaking futuristic. All right. Number one was what happened with Saddam Hussein, right? When they caught him, and what the Rebbe spoke in Nun-Alef about when the war ended, right?
Everybody spoke about him releasing captives, and they made fun of him in the UN. They made him release even things we didn't even know that he had.
The Maskiris made people give the Simcha back in, and the Lashon was used od chazon lamod, right?
Yeah, there was some story there about There was some crazy. I don't remember details. Some clearly about the future. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
The Rebbe spoke. The war was already over. The war had ended. All right, and the Rebbe spoke a Simcha, and he said how Saddam Hussein is running from the palace, and how he's hiding.
The Rebbe knew Bush was right. No, I'm kidding.
The Rebbe was speaking, and they printed the Simcha, and the Maskiris asked the Rebbe, like,
what are you talking about?
And the Rebbe said, Od Chazon Lamod. Basically, it was ordered, it was asked by Maskiris to give the Sichos back in. I interviewed multiple people from that time period, and they said, I remember learning this Shiva, and then Hala, all over the place, told the Bachrim, turn it back in. The Rebbe doesn't want this out yet. The Rebbe doesn't want this publicized. And they said that we handed it in, and everyone forgot about it. It was like a moment in history. It was this freak moment where the Rebbe spoke something and all of a sudden, no, not for now. One example. Give you another example. There's a reporter asking the Rebbe in Mem-Alef. Mem-Alef? I'm pretty sure that was the year. That about what's happening in Egypt. Right? And the Rebbe said, maybe it was Mem. The Rebbe said, we don't know what's happening in a year from now, and we don't know what's happening in 30 years from now. So in 1 year from that point in time was the change in regime in Egypt, and then 30 years brought us to 2011. What was significant then? Because that was when the Muslim Brotherhood rose and changed over the whole everything that was going on in Egypt. And sure, yet again, little bits and words where the Rebbe spoke something, and it was
We're
clear.
talking about
nevuah.
years later.
Correct. Clear nevuah for the future. What I see from the Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis is the Rebbe sitting at over there, and the Rebbe seeing everything post Gimel Tammuz, and the Rebbe's leading us through this period of time in these sichos in a very futuristic way. And one doesn't have to contradict the other. For example, one of the big sichos of Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, right, is Ad Geulah-consciousness, which is what? Which is avodah. What is that sicha on?
Vayeshev?
I'm gonna toss back to the sicha experts. What is summarize Ad Geulah-consciousness?
That France is already purified, and France is
the niggin.
And then France being the lowest.
Related to the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah, at the time of Napoleon, France was not yet purified, and that's why it was better to be under the physical oppression in Russia than be under the freedom from religion of Napoleon's France. And now there's already a yeshiva like Temchet Tzemim in France. We've lifted up the world from the bottom. From even France is purified already, and that means the whole world is really ready for the Geula.
What's fascinating about the Sikha that I found the most fascinating is that the Rebbe prefaces this whole Sikha by saying that we've been speaking about how the world is different and the world is already ready and this and the other. And someone might ask you, but all the things that's going on in the world, how do you see that the world is different? And then the Rebbe went on to explain about Tzarfas.
Okay. By the way, we're different discussion than today. No, just thinking different thing. There's a lot of things that happened recently in the news that are representative of this idea of the Rebbe said. I don't know if it's that thing or a different thing. I think it's what you're saying, Levi. That like, where do you see that in the world now already? And like this whole thing with Elon Musk said today. I don't know if you guys saw the clip or whenever the clip was going around today. That very soon we're not going to need currency in the world anymore, because with the advent of robots and AI following the current trajectory, meaning it's already a thing now that the way things are going, following the current trajectory, you don't need chidushim. You just need things to continue going the way they are. At the current amount of chidushim, things will be so cheap. Meaning the best, greatest surgeon in the world with expertise. I have the best doctor right there. No. Everywhere you want, the robot can do the surgery. No big specialty. Anyone can do it. Everything just becomes very cheap. The most technical thing, sure, my robot can get it. And when it's a robot, the robot gets it done. You download the software. It has the capability to do the most amazing things. You won't need currency. The people ask, why do you care? It's this idea that that thing that I mentioned, it's not going to be a chiddush. It's going to be, you already see a glimmer of it now. It's already in the world.
Question like this for a second is, if the Rebbe tells us that this is where we are and this is where we're at, right? That we have reached Zman HaGeula, right? Levi, you with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we've reached the time of Geula, I believe fundamentally that means something much bigger and something much greater that I think I only started thinking about in context of what I was hearing over here, from Turks and whatever, which is, and it's a much bigger thought process, which is that we have piles of Nevi'im who told us what the Geula is going to look like, what world events are going to happen, how things are going to happen, how things are going to go down. And if we're taking seriously what the Rebbe is telling us in the Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, that we've reached the end, then everything post the Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis is the Geula train, and it's fundamentally part of the Geula process. And it's not just random world events, it's literally the world cleaning itself up and getting ready for Moshiach. And the closer and closer we get, the crazier world events are going to be in context of the world getting ready for Moshiach. And this is where I've carried this conversation with a lot of people. We lose Simcha, yes? Okay.
Yes.
In context of the world getting ready for Moshiach, right? A lot of things have to happen. All right. I've had this conversation with a lot of Lubavitchers, and they try to come back to me and tell me the Rebbe says we don't need Gog and Magog. I said Gog and Magog is not something that the Rebbe gets to mix into in the context of and I'll explain myself in a second before you be the next Lubavitcher to jump at me.
No. It's not. 1 second. It's not. I actually, the way I see it is that the whole everything that the Rebbe was talking about with regard to the Geulah and Mashiach even during the Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, a lot of it was the Rebbe trying to preempt everything, because there is this idea of be'ita and achishena, that the miraculous things are going to happen if it's achishena, and when if it's be'ita, it's just going to be regular and stuff. It's going to be more natural, and there's going to be hardships and all that stuff. But I think what the Rebbe was trying to do, and when the Rebbe is saying that we won't need the Indian of Gog and Magog, is that the Rebbe was trying to preempt this idea that we are going to be in a zman of be'ita. The Rebbe was trying to, that was the Rebbe's whole frustration of Chav Nissen, is that we're an entire year, the Rebbe is saying, we're an entire year of talking about the Yalkut Shemaini, and this is the year Mashiach is going to come, and you guys are all sitting on your tachas like as if it's another Tuesday in Gullahs. Like no, this year is different. When the Rebbe is saying, when I say, and when we're talking about the Yalkut Shemaini, it's like that's what we're talking about, and your Ad Masai should be an Ad Masai of, we're in the year of Shana Shemelech HaMoshiach Nigelba, and Mashiach is not here yet. Ad Masai, that should be the cry. So, like, the Rebbe was trying to bring the Zman of Achishena like as soon as possible, because again, this is all my right now from this point for the next whatever is my understanding, is that we are now in the time of Be'ita, where we're at the time where sadly we're going to have a thing like Gimel Tammuz, where Mashiach is going to be concealed. We have sadly we have.
Let me tell you my vision of how I perceive things, of where we're heading and where we're going with things. I'm very on to something that many literatures like to bring up about the Chavetz Chaim, and it's a great line, which is that he said that Gog and Magog is the three-part situation, which was, he said there's going to be World War I, World War II, and then way later there's going to be a third part. Now, I don't see anything that ever said, in relation to Gog and Magog, anything contradictory, which is that the Rebbe spoke many, many times about the idea of Aren and the Fleiss. There's going to be major, major miracles, right? And the same way that when the Yidden went out of Golos, there were major, major miracles. So we know from the Sfarim that Gog and Magog has these crazy events now. Yeah, we witnessed it. It was called a Holocaust. We watched millions of Jews die, the worst disaster of an oppression of Jews in history. Now, what we're witnessing is the world is changing in a crazy, crazy way because we're at the end of the end. We were at the end for the past 100 years. Now we're at the end of the end. So now, like, everything is going absolutely upside down crazy because this is like, that they have the fireworks show, and at the end of the fireworks show, they do like the
grand finale.
the grand finale of the explosions over there. And that's what we're witnessing. I mean, like October 7th and all these events, Iran and this and that. We are like watching the grand finale of everything come together. And I could give you a whole other podcast of things that will blow your mind in this conversation. But what I think the biggest and fundamental, when we get into this conversation of Inyan Geulah-Mashiach, right, is there are two ways and two avenues to go with this. And what I've been seeing is once you start like. There could be the avenue of, and I think I was really on what Simcha said earlier, is that I could spend an hour, 3 hours in conversation with a person about the identity of Mashiach. What does that walk away and fundamentally change? Or what I do think is more vital and more important and more telling, for example, like I said to you, like I'm sitting with this Yid who, like he's having this conversation with me and I'm telling him, hey buddy, we're living through the times of Mashiach. We're entering. We'll never ever. I will share this moment again and again and again. Gateways. You ever heard of gateways? A Litvish seminar. Okay?
I've heard of it.
It's like Aisha Torah. It's like they used to have this seminar. They go around. I don't know if it still exists. Maybe they do. They have Pesach and whatever. So basically, they have like some of the best Litvish speakers come out and whatever. I was 18 years old. 18, 20, definitely not older. And I was zeicha to be part of one of these conventions. So I'm sitting in and I'm listening, to what the speaker is saying. I'm not going to say the speaker's name because he is decently well known and definitely you can Google his name. And somebody raises their hand in the class. Rabbi, I have a question. You mentioned the Messiah. I didn't know that Jews believe in the Messiah. And he says, oh, yes, we do have a concept of the Messiah. We don't talk about him too much. So I wanted to go over to the guy and ask him, buddy, do you daven Shemona Esrei? Like, how many times a day do you daven Shemona Esrei? Like, how many times in each Shemona Esrei we mention the Geula? Like, which part of the Yiddishkeit that you're in and you're professing to do Kiravan, which part of that doesn't speak about Mashiach a lot? So I think there's this like scared element of people who like to talk about like and I watched it. It was mind blowing to me of like, what are you so frightened about? Like, what about Mashiach frightens you so much? Forget identities, forget who, what, like literal, like it was such fear in his eyes. Like, we mustn't mention Mashiach too much. Like, we don't. It was fear. Like Mashiach was a scary topic for some people. And I think what Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis and the Sichos of that time period allow us to do, especially in what we're witnessing in the past 5 years, is the ability to approach what's happening in the world and tell people, you see what's happening in the world? You see that October 7th, you see all of this? All of this is the Geula train. The world is getting ready for Geula, and it doesn't have to be focused solely on an identity, and it doesn't have to be focused on, it can be focused on everything that we're going through, every headline, everything right now is part of Mashiach, and getting people excited about that and talking about that, which is why I'm literally best friends with Turks now, because he's the first like guy outside of Lubavitch that I see running around promoting this concept. And I'll sit with him many Shabbosim and Shul will bring for hours like on this topic of like, you're literally taking the Rebbe's call to the next level, because Lubavitchers have been on this for like 30 years of like Mashiach. No, like he's the first guy who actually I give him courage, walked into the White House and actually asked the question, to Edom. He made it public in the face of Edom. Hey guys, you ready to do tshuva on what you guys did 2,000 years ago?
Wow. It's crazy because it's something that we've been talking about over here. Like I said, it's something that for me, I also wrote a book about this idea that for me, when that I found is the easiest to talk, the easiest time and place to be able to talk about the Rebbe as Mashiach is if you give context that we are here. We are in the Zman Geulah, and therefore, to make it even more exciting, meaning yes, you should look at everything that happens in the world not as, oh, we're so close, but as it itself unfolding in front of us. But in addition to that excitement, it's even more exciting to know that there's actually someone who has the job of Mashiach. Like the Simcha likes to say, the burning bush moment happened already, that Hashem revealed himself to the Rebbe as Mashiach. So it's not like, oh, there's that idea and then there's also the Rebbe's Mashiach. It's all of everything together. And yes, this is, by the way, I agree with you 100%. This is something that I think has been lost on a lot in the arguments and the whole back and forth on after Gimel Tammuz has been lost. The real thing that the Rebbe was trying to push, the real Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu, is that it's a feeling. It's a feeling of excitement that Mashiach is here. It's a feeling of recognition that the world is changing and that we have to view the world as changing. And because we view the world as changing, and because now we view everything, and that has to do with avodah, that has to do with your personal life also. You can be a greater person. You could be an admor. You could be a tzaddik. You can be learning Likutei Torah every single Shabbos. You could be achieving such great things because we're in the time of the redemption. Because it is, your life now is a redemption life, and even greater than that, and even more exciting is the fact that Mashiach is also here.
Church told me another great line. Incredible thought process. He said, I've traveled. He says, Yosef, I've traveled to so many Chabad houses across the world. Yeah, okay. He said, let me tell you my view on Chabad from an outsider. Okay. He said, the best shluchim have the worst politics. Explain. He said, I've seen a lot of incredible shluchim out there. He said, the Yetzer Hara knows exactly where to park himself. He finds the shluchim who are the most incredibly powerful people, and he wraps them up with garbage situations so they can't do what they need to do. Because if they would be like left free to do what they need to do, boom, Mashiach would have they would have knocked us out of Geulah. I think the same issue surrounds this topic, is that people got so caught up in debates of the identity of Mashiach and do you are you on this side, or are you on that side of the what about just focusing the fact that we're here? Like we like people, like you're saying, you wake up in the morning, you drink your coffee, and you go to shul and you do your shlichus and whatever. Like, before we even get into it, like as Simcha was saying, the Ikkar is not the identity. The Ikkar is Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach as an inyan. Getting us aware of where we are in the crux of history, and telling every one of the people that, as the Ikkar Shlichus, telling every one of the people that is around us, hey guys, we're at the time of Mashiach. It's not like some distant 250 years time left in the future. No. We're here now. We're at the, and pre-Gimel Tammuz, it was top topic. There are people who are saying that, but now the whole frum world is basically in agreement that something major is happening, and we're everyone's on board with it. Everyone's suddenly talking about it, and that's the Ikkar. That's where Lubavitchers need to lead the this call of yes, we're here. This needs to be the forefront of of our mission of being hey guys, everything that's happening now, we should be looking into Tanakh and figuring out, just like they're hanging up Yalkut Shmonis, why are we not looking at an avodah more seriously? Why are the fact that these things are coming up? These are the things that we need to be getting into, of carrying the banner of what is going on in the world, how everything that's happening in the world now is just part of the train of getting us to get the heck out of Gullus.
Yeah, it's I don't know. You know Rabbi Wolf from Ayin Yisrael?
Yeah, doing
He
the same
sits
thing
right
as
here.
Turks.
He sits right here in this chair
Oh,
and gives his
okay.
year. Anyways, so he just had a whole thing of Daniel and the 45 years and the whole calculation about how this is the last year.
Another
whatever,
podcast. I'll give you my Daniel calculations.
Anyways, no. So just to wrap everything up and to finish, but I think this, yes, this is exactly the thing. There was a minor, and this is, for me, this is the perspective that I have of chayus, how I know that chayus are Nun-Beis. What does the Rebbe mean? A shliach came a few, I think it was 2 weeks later, and brought his community to Crown Heights, to the Shechina, to the Rebbe, and he wrote into the Rebbe asking for a bracha for the Shabbaton, and the end of his request is that he should have a hatzlacha in being machdir, lahachdir, to infuse to all the people in the Shabbaton the hakara and the hargasha as Moshiach is shown da v'tzarich sachak lekal b'nei Moshiach tzkeinu v'ledavik b'leiv nefesh lekved kedushas admer nesidreinu, and he's mitzayin to this sicha. But for me, that's the shlichus. The shlichus is that the people, your people in your community, in your surroundings, in any influence that you have on anybody, your shlichus is to infuse in them the recognition and the feeling that Mashiach is here already. And all we have to do is greet Mashiach. And that part, it's like a oh, Mashiach is here, and therefore all of these things are happening. And okay, now this person is Mashiach. And to connect yourself, b'leiv nefesh, to the Rebbe. But that's shlichus. The shlichus is, first and foremost, is to get these people pumping that Mashiach is here, and to view the world like that. To not view the world as depressing and sad and whatever and gullus, but to view the world as, this is amazing. We're in it. And obviously, for a lot of people, that they think they see immediately, oh, that means that now I can do all the fun, easy parts of Geula, like not fasting and stuff like that. But obviously, there's technicalities to that. But that's not what I mean when I say to be excited in this. It means to grab onto the opportunities that are in front of you. You are bleak vul. Right now, you have the ability to tap into infinite, to tap into the essence, atzmos of Hashem. The idea of Molar Zdeas Hashem, the world will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem. It's that the world is going to be just bubbling with godliness. So if the Rebbe is right, if what the Rebbe is saying is true, then that means that the world is already bubbling with godliness. It happens, there's a technicality that you can't see it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So basically get on the bandwagon, and Emir Hashem, hopefully with your help, we'll get Jake Turks on, and he'll give us more of what he's saying, and maybe we'll do this together. This is something that we have to really, really think, and like the Rebbe says, Derech HaYeshara is to learn, in Mashiach, Pasha, to learn, sit and learn, not only in Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, sit and learn and go through Torah, go through Tanakh, go through the prophets, the Nevi'im, go through Sefer Avadia, see what Sefer Avadia says about the Geula, what he says Mashiach, because that's how you gain perspective on what the world is going through. I want
to highlight though one key point that I think was my takeaway from this conversation from my end, which I really enjoyed, which I know it's not what it might even be the opposite of what you tried to do, but Simcha said it to me, is the Ikkar is not identity. And I know that a lot of the Lubavitchers like to make identity, because look, as a Lubavitcher, I have no problem, and I'd be very happy that Rebbe's Mashiach. And the Rebbe from the Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, you're going to have a very complex equation to add up to, if you learn through Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, to try and say that Rebbe is not Mashiach. Mashiach going to come, it's not the Rebbe. That's for the Rebbe to figure out. No, the point I'm trying to say to you is that what I wanted to get in the course of this conversation is that I don't have a problem. Lubavitcher wants to say that Rebbe is, Rebbe's not, Rebbe. What I think the bigger part of the equation, and I think this is what we're ending off with, is that the bigger part of the equation, the bigger focus, and the bigger koch, of Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach, of chayus and Nun-Beis, is stop zoning in on a prat, who Moshiach is, and look at the bigger picture of we've arrived, and you need to get everyone around you to understand where we are in the context of history. you're having a hard time with this bite.
I'm going to disagree only because the Rebbe, when the Rebbe is laying out the new Shlichus, he bases it on the fact that there is a Mashiach in the world. Meaning, he bases it on the fact that Hashem has revealed himself to the Rebbe and sent him as Mashiach. And based on that, all of these things are true. So I think what Simcha was trying to say is that, yes, technically, you don't have to try to give people the identity of Mashiach. It's more important to get this feeling that Mashiach is here, but you can't have, meaning the debate of if the Rebbe is Mashiach or the Rebbe is not Mashiach is a little moot at this point because he already has the job. He's already given the title. It's like debating if Trump is president right now.
I say it the other way. I say it the opposite way around. By the way, I know we're like way over our time, but I say it the opposite way around. I tell people, I say, look, when Hillary Clinton was running for president in 2016, I heard many people, she was called on stage many times, and they said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the next president of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton," right? And she comes up.
They were saying it's basically over. Yeah.
Everyone's clapping and cheering and whatever. And no one expected Trump to win. The point is like I said, like say whoever you want to be Mashiach.
Right. I'm saying 1 second. I'm saying that we're all that was pre Nun-Alef. Now we're at 2016, where after January 20th. Where the Trump was where Trump was sworn in already. It's not like yes, you could say whoever you want is going to be president. Practically, it didn't happen yet. I'm saying no, it did happen, and the Rebbe told us that it happened already.
So that will be I guess that will be the small percentage we disagree upon.
But I'm saying so the reason why I think it's so important is because the only way we can already be in the time of the redemption, the only way that all of these things that are unfolding in us is the unfolding of the Geula of Mashiach, is because Hashem already gave the mission to the Rebbe. Meaning, the redemption from Mitzrayim started when.
If I'm going to start on this road and the questions and the issues and whatever, meaning. I can sit with someone for 3 hours and I'll give them a million reasons why they're not Moshiach, and at the same point in time I'll be the biggest devil's advocate and I'll give you 20 reasons why someone else could be Mashiach also. All right, but my point in the conversation over here is that first of all, doing this whole thing opens Pandora's box to another whole podcast and another 2 hours of conversation. But
you can come back. It's okay.
Yeah, we can pick this back up. But the Ikkar where I wanted to get onto this conversation over here is staying focused before we I think that, as I was saying to you, what Turk said is that the Yetzer Hara comes in and he's amazing at distractions. And I think the distraction is that he calls us to be so hyper-focused on one little tiny thing. And it's like, and so many people, I'm gonna call it the Moshiach movement for a second, that so many people that fall under the Moshiach banner, they get so sucked into the Melech HaMoshiach and everything else in Chassidishkeit many times. Not all the time, not every person, many times.
I wouldn't say many times. I would say an extreme, very loud extreme.
Whatever you want to term it, it happens that as a result of that banner, it leads to certain things being dropped in the name of Melech HaMoshiach. It's important, I think, to stay focused on the bigger picture of Kabbalah's Pnei Mashiach in relevance to chayus, which is that we're here. Now you want to get into identities of who could fill that role as Mashiach. By the way, me and Turk have had that conversation, and when we had the conversation, he, I don't know if he's going to say this on record, but we had this conversation, and he said to me, he said, "Look, if I had to pick who in this generation most likely fits identity," he said, "Yeah, the Rebbe definitely fits identity, probably at the top of the list." And I think anyone who's going to look at those factors is going to say, okay, we definitely have a very high-ranking candidate over here on the list. But again, now what? So now we should over-obsess on the name, where, and that comes back to the beginning, which I want to close out, is where are we putting our focus? What are we spending our time on? Is the time on a name? Is the time on an identity? Or is the time on the general picture of focusing on what we need to do, all the stuff pre-Nun-Alef, Nun-Alef and Beis, all the stuff that makes a Lubavitcher Chassid, number one, which I think is very, very important that we stay focused on. And number two, focus on the bigger picture of Geula as a whole, which is understanding we're here, we're on the Geula train, everything in the world that's happening is about the Geula, and if you have a bigger conversation, you're left with so much more time, and you want to get in with every single person about the identity and who and what and how. Beautiful. But I think that most people, by the time you get past the fact of most people haven't even gotten to the point of educating their own surroundings that we're at the time of Mashiach. Ask the average shliach, have you made it a point to let every single person know that the Rebbe told us that we are? But forget identities. Forget identities. Has every single shliach made it a point to tell every single person in their community that we are living in the times of Mashiach? Forget identities for a second. Have you addressed that one point that we're living in the times of Mashiach as a fundamental conversation to your community?
This is what I was having actually a conversation with a few family members about this, and they said, what do you want? What do you want from shlichim? You want every shliach to just say yichi with their communities? I said, honestly, no. Honestly, I just want there to be a feeling and a recognition that Mashiach is here and that everything that is happening is in the time of the redemption. Now, it's not separate. Just the point of disagreement, it's not the identity of Mashiach is completely intertwined with that, because famously with the whole thing of Eretz Yisrael, that it couldn't be a schal de Geula because it has to be al yidei Mashiach Tzidkenu. And as long as there's no person that has the mission of Mashiach, then it cannot be a schal de Geula. And therefore, if we are saying, and this is where I go, is that it's one and the same. The only way we can have right now being the beginning of the redemption, and we have to be excited about it, and we have to talk about it, and we have to
have Mashiach without an actual Mashiach, is what you're saying.
Yeah, meaning the person is important to the whole thing, and the Rambam speaks about multiple times.
I wanna close out with something that I've said to a lot of Lubavitchers, and I think this is fundamental for me at least. And a lot of people who are fundamental Moshiach have a very hard time with this line. I'm curious your reaction to this. All right? Maybe it's triggering to you. I say, I hope you're not triggered. All right?
Yeah, go.
I throw out the line and I say, if a Lubavitcher's kesher with the Rebbe is solely based on the criteria of Mashiach, I don't believe you're a Chassid. If you're a Chassid of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe is also Mashiach, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
I think there are people who are neo Chassidim of the Rebbe only on context that we get to say Yechi, call the Rebbe Mashiach, and that's that.
Okay.
Meaning, before we got to the year Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis, if you define Rebbe Chassid relationship and we look at that, what is that? If it so happens to be that your Rebbe is Mashiach, That's beautiful. But one shouldn't take away, my relationship with the Lubavitcher Rebbe is not based on the Lubavitcher Rebbe being Mashiach. If the Lubavitcher Rebbe is Mashiach, it's beautiful. It's amazing. That's mind-blowing. And there are many things that the Lubavitcher Rebbe tells us that definitely lead us to the context and the vision of what he said in Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis to say, yeah, he's Mashiach. But I don't believe a Lubavitcher, fundamentally, his relationship as a Chassid, same a Lubavitcher, not to the average, Israeli or whatever. A Lubavitcher Chassid, by definition of a Lubavitcher Chassid, his foremost priority is a Chassid Rebbe relationship. Now, part of that might translate into what was said in the Nun-Alef and the Beis, and taking that and actualizing it and thinking about what does that mean. But I think it's very, very important that Lubavitchers don't lose sight of the Rebbe Chassid relationship, first and foremost.
I don't disagree, but I don't think it like I
said, many people will be triggered by this.
I guess, but like it's not one or the other. Like I feel like there's a bunch of things that you said in this whole podcast that for some reason that can be applied to literally any other two things. They're not two separate. Like you're separating them for not no reason, but like if you really think about it, they're really the same. And by you separating them, it's kind of like you're minimizing one or the other. You're really minimizing both because whatever.
In my head, it's not minimizing. It's not minimizing because
meaning like what if like this? What if the ultimate connection between a Rebbe and a Chassid is a Melech and an Am? What if the ultimate expression? What if like this? What if the ultimate? One second.
Relationship.
There are many relationships that we have, and we use it as mashalim for different things, right? For the longest time, the ultimate relationship was a Rav and a Talmid, a Rebbe and a Chassid. Actually, not Rav and Talmid. Rebbe and Chassid was even greater than that.
Okay.
So now let's ask ourselves, maybe especially in the time of the Geula, the next level, so to speak, of relationship, the higher level of relationship is between a king and their nation. Basically, we're just taking our relationship with the Rebbe.
If you look at,
we're just taking our relationship with the Rebbe that we had before, and we're just we're upgrading our subscription.
But David Melech didn't have some personal connection to every single person.
He did.
What?
Yeah, he first of all, okay. That 1 second. That's true because David was not Yechida Shabenef of Klal Yisrael, but Moshiach is.
Well, you're going into dangerous territory on that statement, by the way.
Why?
Because the neshama of David Melech has to be part of the neshama of Mashiach.
But I'm meaning, but Moshe Rabbeinu, on that road, I'm saying Moshe Rabbeinu also Moshe Geulah-consciousness. But
and Moshe Rabbeinu was also the neshama of Neach.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but we know Moshe Rabbeinu was not the Yechida of Klal Yisrael.
So again,
no. So my question is, could it be? Is it possible? Is it at all possible that your question is lacking that sort of like understanding that maybe perhaps the relationship of a Melech and a Am is just like a upgrading the subscription, so to speak, from a Rebbe and a Chassid to now we are taking that to the next level and we are revealing a deeper relationship of specifically Melech HaMoshiach and the
I don't think we're there yet.
As Jake Turks like to call himself.
I don't think we're there yet to make that assessment.
Okay.
I think that if you're thinking futuristic, potentially, but I think that the reason I make this statement, all right, is, and I've told people this line again, and this is where again it get even more triggering, is I say to people, Lubavitchers, I say, I want you to like Lubavitchers have a hard time with this out of the box thinking. All right, definitely Lubavitchers and under the Shlichus banner have a hard time with this thinking. And I said, I need you to process this exercise, which people can't get past this. I said, Mashiach walks in and it's not the Rebbe. Pause. Don't get triggered. Hey, work with me. Mashiach walks in and it's not the Rebbe. Do I have a problem fundamentally? Under the banner of Nun-Alef and days, yeah, there's issues, but I don't have a problem from the standpoint of I'm a Chassid. I want to see my Rebbe. This is going to happen. The Rebbe is going to be in the skull in front of our eyes. Beautiful. All right, and I get to be my push to the Rebbe. Now, Mashiach walks in, and it's the Lubavitch Rebbe. Even better. But I think that it's fundamental for a Lubavitcher to first and foremost appreciate his relationship with the Rebbe from the standpoint of a Chassid and a Rebbe. Now you want to add it on top of that, the dessert, the nice cherry and the beautiful ice cream and the whipped cream. By the way, your Rebbe spoke fundamentally stuff from 1990, 91, 92 that should completely change your view as a Chassid and where we're going in life and what the Rebbe stands for and what the Rebbe is in the process of the ultimate redemption. That adds a cherry on top of your relationship to the Rebbe. But I don't think that I think many people have defined their relationship with the Rebbe from Nun-Alef and Beis and gone backwards. And I think a Chassid's relationship with the Rebbe needs to start from Yud Shvat. It needs to start from Bat Lagani. And it needs to start from everything forward until you get to Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis and you understand how Bat Lagani brought us to Kossus Lamar and how it brought us to everything that the Rebbe brought us to all the way through Nun-Beis. And I think that many Lubavitchers miss everything from 1950 to 1990, and they're like, let's just jump to Moshiach. And it's like, guys, back up a second. Let's build the Rebbe Chassid relationship. Now, once we have Rebbe Chassid relationship, now you can understand what's going on in Nun-Alef and Nun-Beis in context. Like I said, many people have a hard time. I'm not looking to debate or whatever. I'm perfectly okay. People can disagree. For me,
the only point of disagreement is that having as much I haven't learned extensively, but from what I've learned about the whole idea of Melech HaMoshiach and the meaning of a king and all of that, it's like you're fundamentally missing the point of Melech HaMoshiach. It's very. Whatever,
my daughter just started learning Shmuel and Navi and Tanakh. We have David HaMelech's full life story for a reason, and it doesn't start just from him coming to the throne. It comes from every.
But it does. But it I feel like you're. It's okay. It's the same problem that I have with people that say that was machst da Greise Rebbe za kleine Mashiach. It's like if you're saying that, you're missing the whole point of Rebbe and Mashiach. If you're like this, if you're telling me that there's identity of Rebbe, that there's the Rebbe as Rebbe, and then there's Mashiach, which is like extra, which is like a sort of like on top, there's like the kapata, the Rebbe's kapata, and then if the Rebbe becomes Mashiach, he'll put something on top of that and it'd be like an extra layer of whatever's going on. First of all, that it's a fundamental misunderstanding of Mashiach, the whole idea of Mashiach. So, and second of all, again, seemingly it's a misunderstanding of Rebbe.
It's Pandora's. As I told you, it's Pandora's box.
Yes, it is opening a Pandora's box. Yes, it is. That'll be a whole nother hour.
I will give you. I will give you homework to check up. There's a beautiful story that should have raised a lot of questions. The Arizal sent to Chaim Batal, and I'm spacing on the other one, to to Europe. They used Chitas Aderech, and their job was to go meet Moshiach of the generation. You know the story?
No.
His name, Moshiach of the generation, was I think Shmuel Bar Elikim. He was an unknown guy who lived in a hut in the edge of a town. A very, very interesting story. All right, and as soon as he came to him, he said, the Arizal told us to tell you and reveal that you're Moshiach of this generation. And in short, he said he did a terrible thing. Now I have to die. Now I have to pass away. He wasn't supposed to reveal this. Very, very interesting story. And once you touch upon this story, it raises a lot of questions in the context of Mashiach and identity of Mashiach, and in this whole thing. It doesn't take away from anything, but I believe it does fundamentally separate that Mashiach is an additional title that is added to a person. And it doesn't have to necessarily be there from the get-go or from the beginning. And I mean, again, other things that open Pandora's box. Questions. Is the Rebbe Mashiach in 1974?
No, not in the same way. Not in the way not the same as Tafshin and Aleph.
Okay, so if you're going down that road, so you're saying something happens in the Nun-Alef Nun-Beis time period. If you're going on the road of identifying that, like, the Rebbe takes the identity of Moshiach, something happened in the 1990, 1991, 92 time frame that basically grants the Rebbe the title of Moshiach, right? And by the way,
but it's not like basically the Rebbe bases it on Chassam Sofer that he says B'chol der v'der yishechet mizar Yehuda shu roi liyos Mashiach.
Right, but
there's one second. It's very important. There's one person that he is fitting to be Mashiach. Meaning,
correct.
If the generation is good, if everything is good, if there's no Mnes V'Yikuvim, this guy is Mashiach from a get-go, but he's not yet Mashiach. He doesn't have Ukshegia Hazman, and when the time comes, Yigala Elav HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'Yishalchi, Hashem will reveal himself to that person and send him. Basically, he is
correct.
He is the designated survivor. Lahavdil Elf after Abdullah. There's a designated survivor. He is designated as the guy.
Correct. And it's the same reason based on this that many people outside the Lubavitch have a fundamental problem that of Gimel Tammuz being the middle ground. And yes, we know where this is going. We know how to answer. We know what to say.
One second. But this is okay. We'll finish up with this, and then if we want, we'll have a whole nother episode about it. But just to finish off with this point, I think a lot of the questions that people have, and this is why the Rebbe made it so important. Starting the beginning of all of the amazing revelations started with the Rebbe saying that Derech HaYeshar is to learn in Geulah Mashiach. Why? Because when you learn the concept of Mashiach and Geula in Torah, sourced in Torah and in Yeshayim, Achreinim, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, everything. When you learn those things, there's so many questions, there's so many concerns, there's so many debates and this and that are just they're gone. Those questions don't exist because now you understand the mechanism. If you don't understand the mechanism, you can have a million questions. And the way to answer those questions is by showing you, hey, look at the mechanism. That question is just irrelevant because that's not how the mechanism works, right? If a person has a question on how the spaceship works, it's like, yes, you can't ask that question. Like, that question is not destroying the whole space exploration because that question is based on your ignorance of space exploration and how it works. If you understand space exploration and you have a question, so then your question can be answered. But if your question is based on ignorance, there's just no reason to talk about it.
It's funny. My Bacher years, Camp Prima Sifta, Bornstein ran the camp, and we were on the grounds of a Litvish camp, and a lot of guys there, and they used to check with all the Lubavitchers. I'm like, is there Mashiach in it? So no one knew to answer them, and I'm like, hey, come, we'll have the conversation. So I came to them and I asked them all very, very, very simple, like, I'm like, guys, like all these bachrim who wanted to start up, I'm like, hey, so if Mashiach came tomorrow, he walks in, how are you saying yes, no? They're just like staring at me blank. I'm like, how? Who's going to decide? Yes, he is Mashiach. No, he's not Mashiach. Maybe Yosef is Mashiach. I'm like, what's your source? Blank stares, no idea. So I'm introducing all of them. I'm like, guys, we know Mashiach based on the Rambam. All right. So I said, look, pick up a Rambam. We're going to go through Hilchos Melachim, and we're going to have this conversation on, what's possible, what's not possible, and now once we get through that, we're going to have the conversation of let's take, because you have to bring into the equation that a lot of people bring up nerag, and you have to bring into the equation of a lot of people don't hold that nerag means it means death, and people say bigger conversation another time, whatever. But the point is, a lot of people, I'm like, I tell people, look, let's have an open fundamental conversation over here based on all the criteria. Ben David, it has to be male, it has to be tzaddik, it has to be well known, there's a lot of criteria over here. I said, I give you all of history from David and Melech till now. Go learn Jewish history. Give me 10 candidates who fit the bill the most. Like, who are your top 10 picks of all time? If you're gonna say, I'm like, first of all, how many people do you know that are officially Ben David? Like, there's a lot of good holy Jews out there. Like, how many people can, like, you're very limited in the Ben David train. You're very
already
limited.
From the get-go. You're eliminating 80% of
correct. There's a lot of good holy Jews out there, but the minute you get but the point I'm saying to you, and the point that I think that I tread carefully on, is that I'm open to people's conversations when they say, "Oh, like, well, how do you know?" Like the Gimel Tama. Like, look, everything can be addressed and everything can be held in conversation. And everything can be looked at. But I think first and foremost is like, stay focused on circling back, let's stay focused on Geula. You want to zoom into identities? We can zoom into identities. You want to get focused on that Rebbe is, that Rebbe isn't. Beautiful. Where are we going with that? What if the Rebbe is, the Rebbe isn't? What's it going to change? How you're going to are you like tomorrow you're going to be like doing Chitas twice because of it? Like where did that bring you? However, I do believe fundamentally, when a person gets in the knowledge and in the headspace that everything that's going on in the world right now is to prep the world for Geula, I think that does change fundamentally your entire life. It changes your outlook on the world. It changes your outlook on your daily, like that's a real change in how you live. If you really believe, like, that we're on the Geula train and what's happening right now, like people are screaming about Mamdani and what's going to happen, and I'm like, guys, we don't have to worry. We're part. This is part of the Geula process, and the Yidden are safe. This part of the like the all the negativity stuff. Like, I think that needs to be the focus. I think that less on the focus on getting into who, what, when, where, but
let's just focus on the positive. We should stay focused on the amazing things that are happening in the world. And in Mitzvah Shem, we'll have Jake Turks, who will give us more, and we'll have more debates and more conversations about Zehus Shel Moshiach and stuff like that. Everybody, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and most importantly,
where's the like button? Right here or right there?
Somewhere. I don't think we put it. I don't know why. Whatever. Point is,
do it. Like right here, like over here, like right
exactly.
over here.
Share this video with everybody that you know. Again, most important thing, I think that the most common thread with a lot of questions that people have on Mashiach and Geula and all those things is just ignorance. Open any sefer that talks about Mashiach and Geula. If you want, learn Sefer Avadia in preparation for our Mirza Shem interview with Jake Turks, hopefully. Hoping and praying. But seriously, open your eyes, realize that Mashiach is here, the Geula is here, and we all need to do is greet Mashiach, basically accept it, bring it into our lives, change our lives because of that, and we will very, very soon see the real Mashiach coming in through the door. May it happen. Amen. Right now. L'chaim livracha. We want Mashiach now. Ayashe koyach. R Yosef.
ועד כדי כך המדבר גולהוב der עם soll machli sein, Yeshia Melech.